Okay, hey everyone, welcome back to the Generation Optimistic podcast. For those who don't know, my name is Hannah, and to my left, I have my amazing guest. You want to introduce yourself? So today we're going to be talking about all things business, hustle, family, college life, all those different things. So for those who don't know, what HBCU did you attend?
The only HBCU.
Hello.
No shade.
No, it's all good. It's all good.
Florida A&M University on the highest of 7 hills in Tallahassee, Florida.
Okay, and then what was your major?
I was a business major. I was in the 5-year MBA program.
I know that's right.
With your uncle.
Hello.
Although I'm a little bit older than him, only by 1 year.
Shout out to my uncle. Okay, so what was your, I would say, plan when you were in school? Where did you see yourself?
I've always been a pretty strategic person. Mm-hmm. So I went into college with a plan of like what I wanted to be.
Yeah.
Now those plans have not really fared out, and we'll talk about those, right? It's kind of like, okay, planning to deal with the twists and turns of life. But essentially, I always loved learning about personality types and kind of understanding the human brain and psychology. And so I always thought I would be a great therapist. I love talking to people. And so originally I wanted to go to Xavier. And then I realized that I needed to take a lot of science and math. And I was like, I don't know. That's not really giving what I want to do with my life. And so ultimately, I ended up taking a business program at Clark during the summer before my before my senior year of high school. And it was a entrepreneurship program. And so that was when I figured out, okay, I think that I want to go into business ownership. I had always had a fascination with entrepreneurs. And so I just decided, okay, let me figure out which HBCUs are known for their business schools. And that pretty much led me to FAM and Howard. So those are my top 2 choices. Applied to both, got into both, and then essentially went down to FAM's homecoming with my best friend. Shout out to Sharice Brown.
Yeah.
And, Sharice had a rich family culture in Tallahassee, like dating back for the long. So I was very familiar with Florida A&M, but I also grew up like hating FAM because my mom went to TSU, and so Tennessee State. And so there was a big Atlanta Classic here like my entire life that we would go to every year, and FAM was our rival. So considering FAM was actually like a big secret because I was like, no, like that's not even an option
for you.
Because no, we don't do that. My dad went to Hampton, and so that was kind of where he wanted me to go. But from the beginning, like my parents ingrained in me, like you're going to a HBCU. Yeah. It really wasn't an option. And so ultimately went down to a homecoming, and I was like, yeah, Sharice is not about to have all of the fun. And so that's how I made my decision that FAM would be the choice. And then also we had a 5-year MBA program. And so I thought that being able to get through that program faster
in 5 years was smart.
Was going to be the best opportunity for me to get done faster, because I wasn't like I didn't want to go and get a ton of degrees at the time. And so that's how I ended up in Tallahassee.
So were there any moments like during the 5-year program where you were like, I don't know if like I really want to do it, and just stuck out with it? Or is like once you started, you were like, this is really what I want to do?
Let me think about that. I don't think that I've had those moments until now as an adult, right? Okay. So ultimately, I have now circled back to, I do a lot of work in the psychology space, right? So I am a full-time leadership development coach. I'm a life coach, a business coach. And so a lot of what I originally wanted for my life in that space of psychology, I wish that I would have taken classes for in school. Also, I do a lot in the journalism space, right? So I have a podcast now going on 9 years. I do a lot of writing. And so I wish that I would have taken some courses in our journalism school, because FAM has a great J school program.
J school is really good.
So I wish I would have connected the dots more so that I could have had a more robust experience. But I think that when I was there, like I was all about it. Like FAMU's business school was amazing. I really had no regrets while I was there.
Yep. I think that's the same for me because I wanted to start doing science. I want to do sports medicine. And then I was like, girl, you can't do no science, no math, literally. And then I changed it to journalism. But then I'm learning how it's not just journalism. There's other things too. So I was interested in taking a business class because like podcast stuff, that stuff, it becomes a business to a point. So it's also always good to know how to do like the business stuff and everything.
I agree. And I think that has helped me out because it's allowed me to pretty much go into any space that I want to because I know how to monetize anything.
Yeah.
Right. And so a lot of people who have very specialized training, whether it's in the medical field or whether it is in journalism, they'll come to me to teach them how to make money from their specialty. And so it worked out that I did business first and then kind of added on to it later.
Has there ever been like a struggle when it comes to monetizing stuff, like for you? Because I know for me, I sometimes struggle with it. It's like, I know I'm good at something, but I don't be wanting to charge like crazy. But like that is business though, if you think about it. But have you ever like struggled with that?
Oh, for sure. I think that that's a hard thing because it really comes back to confidence, right? Like, do you feel like you're worth charging somebody for this, right? And so, especially when you're new at something. And so I remember when I first officially got like my life coaching certification. I had been coaching business owners at that point for maybe 6 or 7 years.
Okay.
And I had been helping people, grow their businesses. I had worked in small businesses, but the day that I opened up my own practice, I was like lowballing myself because I was like, do I even know what I'm doing?
No, literally, yeah.
And so I really had to like re-coach myself to say like, okay, you have a degree in this. You've had success, doing X, Y, and Z. You have these natural talents and these natural abilities. So I think that it is one of those things that never gets easy. There are some people who are naturally better at selling.
Yeah.
But it is always an awkward conversation when it comes to money. I think that it's become easier for me because I do know my worth. And also once people start paying you and you're like, oh, people are willing to pay this amount,
then you start charging.
Then I'm like, I just got to find the people that got it and can pay me, you know? And so that becomes the game. But yeah, definitely. I still get jitters when I get to that part of the call where I'm like, so the investment is $50,000 million. And they're like, okay, I'm gone.
Literally. So how did you end up with like being a life coach? Was there like something else you did before that?
Literally, I started working when I was 14 years old. So I've had a million jobs, but
what was your first job?
My first true job, like I got a paycheck, was as a camp counselor.
Okay. So, yep. Shout out to all the camp counselors. That's what I'm doing right now.
Yeah. Like, that's like the best job. It's so flexible. And we used to get paid well. So that was like my first, like true, like I'm filling out forms and getting taxed, right?
Yeah.
But then like my first real job was working at Limited 2. Do you even know what that is?
No.
Oh my God. You're like aging me.
What is that?
Limited 2 is basically, do you know what Justice is?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, so I used to shop there, yep.
So Justice is basically what they renamed Limited 2 to be. So it's basically
okay, I got you.
Version. So essentially, do you know what Express is?
No.
The store Express?
Probably, no.
In the mall, like where they sell work clothes and stuff?
No.
Oh my God.
Okay, no, I probably know if I see it, but like...
Talk about generational difference. No, so like basically Express was like where people used to shop for like work clothes and stuff, and there was this store called The Limited, and it was kind of the same thing, like where people would buy like work clothes. So then they created this store called Limited 2, which was basically the kid version of
Got you.
So that's where we used to shop growing up. Like that was like the poppin' store for kids and preteens. Like literally me and Sharice wore Limited Toe like head to toe every day. Like that's our first Usher concert, we were like Limited 2 like sweater vests. And I was very ambitious. Like I always was like, when I see something I wanted, and so I remember going into the store and I was like, one day I'm gonna work here. Like I just thought that was like the bomb job.
The place to work.
All the girls there were like super fashionable, and then so that was my first job at the mall, was Limited 2. And then actually, when I went to college, I transferred my job down to Tallahassee. So I worked at Limited 2 all through college.
Oh, really?
Well. Then I also ended up becoming a server in college. So I worked at Ruby Tuesday. Have you heard of that?
Yes.
Okay, great.
She like, I gotta
Thank God. So I was a server. That was like my favorite job in college because you could make cash every day.
Yeah.
And then you could, if you didn't want to work, you could always find somebody to pick up your shift because like people want to make cash on
make
demand,
money, yeah.
right? So, but one of the things that is great about FAM is that they make you, in the 5-year program, they make you start getting internships from day one.
Early, yeah.
And so I got my first internship right after my summer of my freshman year. And I started working in watershed management, which is basically like where you pay your water bill for Atlanta. Mm-hmm. Horrible internship. Like literally the most unorganized agency still to this day. Like I know, like I'm like, y'all haven't upgraded. I worked there 20 years ago and it was trash and it's still horrible.
And it was trash.
It's still horrible. Did an internship there and then basically after that internship was over, ended up picking up a job being a gate agent at AirTran. Do you know what AirTran is? No.
Is that an airport? That's not an airport, is it?
No, it was an airline. It basically used to be Southwest.
Okay, yes, Southwest.
So Southwest bought AirTran, but I used to be a gate agent. So basically, the people that board the plane.
Oh yeah.
That was also a very fun job, but I was terrible at it.
So wait, did you ever do jobs that were like intended towards your thing, or you was just doing it?
I'm getting there.
Oh, my bad.
I had a lot of jobs. I told you that, Hannah. So literally, I was a gay agent, and so then from there, after that, I got another internship at International Paper. So that was like my first big one. SBI School of Business internship. And so I worked at International Paper, which was like a big corporate internship. I left FAM for 6 months and worked in their procurement department. And so that was in Memphis. I then decided, okay, I want to graduate from school making the most money. So that became like a competition between me and my friends. So that was like a big thing at FAM. Like we knew like what careers made the most. Yeah. We knew what companies paid the most. And so it was just a matter of which out of us are going to get those jobs.
Get that job, yeah. Okay.
And it was like for your uncle's class, it was him because he's great at sales and great at interviewing. I'm giving him too many shout outs. But so after that, I had a Bank of America internship. That was great. And then I ended up at JP Morgan. And so the higher paying roles were in finance and in sales and at P&G. P&G was a big recruiter. So and they paid really well. So once I got to JP Morgan, that's when I realized like, okay, banking is like where I want to start my career. So I started my career. This was like what was hot when I was coming out was like everybody wanted to work on Wall Street. I always knew that I wanted to live in New York. I always kind of wanted to give like those Sex in the City, Carrie Bradshaw, like
those vibes.
Yeah, like I was always kind of like into fashion. I wanted to live that fast city life, and it was like, okay, this is also what's going to afford my lifestyle, so I'm gonna do this. So that's where I started my career. And I worked at JP Morgan for 6 years. I worked in private banking. So that's basically where I worked with the wealthiest people in the world, managing their portfolios, helping them figure out which investment products were going to make their money grow. And then basically I was like, I looked up and I was at work at 6 every day. I never left before midnight. And I was like, this is not the life that I want.
6 in the morning to midnight?
Like I was at the desk at 6 in the morning.
Oh, not getting up at 6.
Not getting up. Like I was at the desk at 6 and not leaving till midnight. And so I was looking around and like all of the people that had been there for years, like they were in their 30s, but they looked like they were 40. And I was like, no, this is not what I want.
That, yeah.
I started developing stomach ulcers, really bad acid reflux, and I was just like, I can't compromise my health.
Yeah, because of the job. That's crazy.
I didn't know what I wanted to do just yet, but I knew that I needed to cut back. And so I switched over to talent and development in a very unique role where I got to work with the top 100 people in the firm globally. So that was basically where I got my first taste of what I do now, which is leadership development. and I fell in love with it. I got to be around some of the most successful people that you will ever meet, the smartest in the room. And I got to understand what makes them great at what they do. What makes them great leaders. Because they weren't successful because they were doing it on their own. They were successful because they knew how to lead great teams, and their teams helped them make money for the firm, right? And so I did that. And then eventually, I got bit by the entrepreneurship bug. And so I don't know. Oh, you do know because you're from Detroit. I was going to say, I don't know if you've ever heard of the Lip Bar.
Yes.
But my friend Melissa, she basically came to me and was like, hey, I'm getting ready to start making lipstick. Basically every time you tell me to go buy something within 24 hours, I go and buy it. Like, you're a great storyteller, you're a great salesperson. I want you to be head of sales. So I was like, okay, cool. I've never been a salesperson, but like, I love what you're doing. Yeah. I'm ready to get the hell up out this job. And so the Lip Bar became like our exit strategy. So Melissa was in banking at the time too. And so it just got to the place where the Lip Bar started growing so fast, and our interest and our passion was keeping up with it, but our jobs were holding us back. Yeah. And so collectively, we set a date together and said, this is when we're leaving our jobs. And so that date was like March of 2013. And we were out. And that was the last time I worked a job. And so that was, 12 years ago? And then after that, I started doing all kind of entrepreneurial things. Worked with the Lip Bar for several years. Went on to start selling just like various health and wellness products. But then I really fell in love with working with business owners. So kind of merging that talent development that I talked about with helping people to understand, you say, Hannah, you want to, become a famous podcaster, right? Yeah. Well, let's really understand, like, what are your strengths to help you do that? Now that we know those, how do we monetize those skills? Yeah. How do we market your skills? How do we get your team? Who are the right people that could sit under you? So I really started to help create like these ecosystems for people to do that. So that's really what I do now, is I help really working with like founders and CEOs and then leaders in organizations to kind of pull out their gifts and lead their teams.
That's crazy. That's exciting though.
It's a great season.
Is that like, because I'm wondering, because like when you're in school and you're like looking at, okay, these are like, jobs or whatever, is that ever a job that's like written down, or is it more something you just like fall into?
Which one?
I would say the leadership development type thing.
So the thing that is probably written down is more human resources, right? So if you were to start from the bottom in a role like this, it would look like very basic. I'm going and working at a firm, and I'm working in the human resources department, right? If you were doing like a more corporate role. Okay. But, in leadership development, the challenge with it is most people that are coaches are born with this gift, right? But the world typically expects you to have a certain level of experience on your resume to give yourself the title of coach, right? Yeah. So that's where a lot of the imposter syndrome comes with this space, because you're like, well, people tell me that I have to have 15 years of X, Y, and Z to be good at something. But God ordained me a long time ago with this gift, right? So when you look at history, you see that throughout generations, there were always people that had these gifts that people would come to. Even, I don't know if you watched like Game of Thrones or anything like that, but like every king has a hand, right? Yeah. It's like, who am I turning to for my wisdom and my guidance? And that's similar to what I am, right? Like I have very, very talented women that I work with every day that I'm not telling them what to do, but I'm simply asking them very powerful questions that they sit back and they say, damn, that's a good question. And it helps them come up with answers that they already had the answer to that I just pulled out of them. I've always been really good at that, right? And I kind of felt that in my spirit when I was trying to figure out my major. Like, okay, I love sitting down and saying, girl, he did what now? So now, how did you respond when he told you that he was with old girl at the movies?
At the movies.
Because I need to understand, when he told you that, what were you thinking when you decided, and so it was like me having this curiosity around human emotion and the way people interact, but also having a certain level of reverence for it, like non-judgment reverence for it, is something that I knew, but to your point, I didn't know what it looked like in a job. Yeah. So I think that the answer is 9 times out of 10, no. Like, it's going to look like you go into human resources and you kind of figure it out. But in something where you pulling in multiple talents, it's always going to be a crafted role, right? And so like in my practice, that's actually what I call my process is life crafting, because it's almost like if you think about like, you know, when you see like these VR computers and you're kind of like moving the pieces around, like, okay, I'm bringing this in, it's like you think about all your talents, right? And you're moving them around and you're trying to figure out how can I merge these together to create magic? And it takes time. It really does. And I think that's what's been so frustrating for me over the years is that I've always been like I want it now. Yeah. But especially in my field, like, everything has to come with like experiences, right? And so I think that you have to start finding like little things that add up. So to the point of what would I've done differently in college, like, okay, if I realize like, oh, I really love writing, right? Well, let me go take a writing course. I may not know exactly what I'm gonna do with the writing. Like it may not be an exact job that aligns with it, but I just want to start getting good at the things that my soul feels called to. And so I feel like that should be more of the strategy versus everything is against a job, right? And that's kind of how I coach. It's like, okay, let's take LinkedIn away. Let's take the job descriptions away and go inward. Like when you think about at night, what keeps you up? Like what excites you? What do you get lost in? That's what I want you to do more of. I want you to do more of that in your coursework. I want you to talk to more people about that. You know, like that's where you lean in a little bit more. So like for you, for example, like what's something that you would say that you did in the last week and like you just kind of got lost in time? You looked up and you were like, dang, like where did the time go?
I would probably say like we're doing a documentary at work.
Okay.
So I would say that it's probably.
Okay, so what about that experience like just drawed you in? Like try to break it into like moments during that filming.
I think
whatever y'all were doing.
I think just trying to figure out from like looking at like an audience point of view, what's the perspective like that we're trying to give to them, if that makes sense. So like if I'm watching it, what's the emotion I'm getting from it? I think that's where my brain goes for that. Also too, even like just from an editing point of view too, is like, well, how do we film it so that way it's edited right, those type of things. And then working with all the people in our team, just you need to get this, you need to make sure you get this. That's kind of all the stuff that I was thinking about.
And so when you were having that experience, once it was over, what did you feel like you would do with that like spark? Did it just kind of go away, or did you at any point say like, oh, I want to do documentaries? Or like how did that experience land with you?
I think not that I necessarily want to do them, definitely in the field of like film for sure, but I kind of want to do it to where like we submit it to like a festival or whatever. Okay. So I don't know, just going higher up in that field of like docs and stuff. I don't know. I haven't really like thought about it crazy, but like.
Right. So traditionally, what people would do in a scenario like that would immediately go almost exactly what you did. It was just like, okay, that was cool. Now I think that I could potentially go up in the field, right? It's like we essentially tie experiences to a job, right? Or to an award festival or to something like that, thing, right? But really what we have to get in the habit of doing is parsing apart, like, okay, when I was in there, I liked editing, right? Like I really, really liked thinking about as the audience watches this, if we show this from this view and then we switch to this view, it's going to really give them two perspectives and it's going to pull on heartstrings this way, right? So from there, you say, okay, how can I get better at this skill, right? So instead of immediately going to the end goal, it's thinking about what are the things in between that I can just like get very strong at. Yeah. And when you do that, then you're giving yourself the opportunity to strengthen muscles that didn't exist before. And then you just start like developing more. And you get closer and closer to these things where you're like, oh, this is what I want to do, right? Because honestly, most jobs are not going to perfectly describe what you're meant to do, because only you are going to be able to do what you're meant to do. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? And so you have to kind of like do the work to like figured those things out through trial and error.
Yeah.
So and I just wanted to show you that backwards, because that's kind of what I think is missing in the college experience.
Yeah.
You know, is when we have exposure to these things, don't give me exposure just for the sake of like, okay, now do you want to do this for a living? No, let me test it out a little bit. Like, I actually enjoyed what we did in this documentary class, but what I enjoyed most was like this piece of it. So now let me go
expand on that part.
This piece,
okay, yep.
Versus just let me go be a documentary. Whatever person is. You know what I'm saying?
So when you like coach other people, do you ever like sit down with yourself and do it?
Oh yes, every day.
Is it like the same? But it's like, does it look the same or does it look different? Because like obviously, do you like learn the same way you teach other people?
No, so that's why a coach always needs a coach. So I have several coaches. So I have a life coach, I have a business coach, I have a therapist. I think that I do a lot of self-coaching. So a lot of times when I'm introducing new tools, so a lot of the things that I do, like in my practice, are science-based through the field of positive psychology. And so like when I was first getting my positive psychology practitioner certification, we would take all of these different assessments and have to do all of these different things. And it was very enlightening for me to see my own levels, right? Yeah. And so even like the activity that I just gave you, I've done on myself. And I try to do it on myself quarterly. And it lands differently when I do it with myself. But I feel like I can only get honest answers when I'm by myself. Right? I can only truly process inwardly. Because when I'm around others, then I am easily influenced by the opinions of others. Yep. And I know that about myself. So when I'm really making hard decisions, I have to be alone. But what I will say is that when I work with my coach, she challenges me to think about things from different perspectives that it's impossible for me to do by myself, which is why I think it's so important that even if people don't work directly with a coach, they bounce ideas off other people constantly, because we're meant to connect with other people. Yeah. And so I constantly use my tools on myself, on my husband, on my kids. And then I'm just like a junkie for personal development books. Like if you see me at any given point, I'm probably reading one, listening to a podcast.
About one, yep.
All day. It's like what I do.
So when do you when the time frame of a person's life, right? When do you recommend that they get into season of getting like a life coach or whatever? Or is it not for everyone? What do you think?
Everybody should have a freaking life coach.
Okay.
I feel like when we pop out of the womb, they should be like, here's your life coach.
Here's your life coach.
We should all be assigned one from birth. I would say that, so there are many ways for you to get some type of coaching at a very young age, right? So it may not be in the form of like a paid life coach expert, but it would be in the form of a counselor in school, right? So I think that, being able to use the resources that are available from the beginning. So even like my children go to therapy. So even they're 9, 7, 5, and 3, the 9, 7, and 5-year-old all go to therapy. They all are very well versed in emotional regulation, in the sense of they can talk and name emotions,
how they feel and stuff.
Right.
Yep.
But we also talk about like, what did you like most about your day, right? So again, coaching is all about asking people powerful questions so they can think about it. And so my son, he loves football. He just went to football camp this week. And so instead of me just constantly saying, oh, do you like football? I know he loves football, but I want him to think about, okay, what part of football do I like? And so on the first day, I said, what did you like best about the camp today? And he was like, oh, I really loved when I found out that a quarterback is actually part of the running back family. I never knew that, right? And so to me, that helps me understand that not only does he enjoy playing it, he actually truly loves to understand like
the actual game of
the
it
game. And so as a parent, when I'm trying to spot like their true like passions, it's answers like that help me realize it's not me just thinking he's good at football. Like, he actually likes football, you know? And I think that parents have to be coaches in that. Like, that we have to really hear from them, like, what do they like
and enjoy.
I think that definitely at the high school and college level, you need to be working with a counselor or a coach. Me and my colleagues go into high school, middle schools, and we offer programs. Actually putting together a curriculum right now because research is showing that, similar to infant ages where kids are a sponge, adolescence and middle school is our second sponge phase. So it's when we're most impressionable, and it's when we most struggle with like social emotional.
Yeah.
So what do I want to be in life? That normally happens to most
in that
people
age,
in middle school. So being able to have a coach in middle school, if we could have had that, we could have saved so many lives. So we're I'm trying to hit people at middle school right now. And then as far as investing in one, like from your own paycheck, I feel like, when you can afford one, do it, right?
Yeah.
Because life coaching is expensive. It's a premium. But if you can't afford one, find the tools. There are a lot of free stuff on YouTube, a lot of free group coaching. And then also, I was going to say, not the counselor at school, but like there's programs from like the YMCA or organizations that do like leadership development where you can have similar experts that offer their services pro bono.
Yep. So from the parents' perspective, because I was talking to my mom about this the other day, when you have a child and you see what they're good at, how do you like push them to like go into that pocket of stuff, or do you like let them figure it out themselves?
Yeah. I think that I don't know that you can push a child to do anything. I don't know that that's even a great strategy. I've been a parent for only 9 years, so your mother would be much more well-versed in this.
Yeah.
But just based off of my personal experience and my research as an expert, it's about cultivating the exposure and then, again, setting them up in environments where it just kind of happens naturally, right?
Yeah.
And so my son loves football. Let me sign him up for football camp. But my son is also very small. He's very slim. So is my husband. So the likelihood of him going to the NFL is probably slim to none. I don't know. He thinks he is. But what I have also recognized is that he is very good at journalistic skills, right? So he loves talking about, commentating on the game.
Yeah.
He loves YouTube videos. He loves editing. Like, these are all different skills, right? And so I've put him in YouTube coding camps. I've put him in, journalism programs. And so, again, it's kind of me putting him in environments where he can develop his talent. And then eventually he'll be able to say, okay, like, this is really the thing that I enjoy the
doing,
most. And then it'll be his choice. I think as a parent, it's our job to just pay attention and listen versus just kind of projecting our missed goals in life, which is sometimes hard because I know, like, I was a ballerina and like I really wanted my daughter to be a ballerina.
No, that's real. That's
She's
real.
a gymnast, and I'm like,
that's
okay,
the same. Like,
it's not. But I was like, literally, I saw a ballerina video the other day, and we have a new baby girl in our family. So I sent it to my cousin, who's a ballerina. I was like, nobody else wanted to do ballet. Grace doesn't have an option. She's going to do it.
She has to do ballet. No, that's funny. So we're gonna talk about your daughter. I love her and all her gymnastic stuff. How old was she when she started?
5.
That's crazy. She going to the Olympics, right? Yeah, she going. Guys, she's going to the Olympics.
Listen, there are 5 girls going to the Olympics right now. Out of the millions of gymnasts,
she got it
in the country.
She going.
There's a point. What they say on Instagram, there's a 0.00003% chance of her going to the Olympics. So I think that, again, being in the sport, it's allowed me to understand that there are other things for gymnasts outside of the Olympics. Like we just left a camp at Fisk. Shout out to the first HBCU gymnast team. But, you know, one of the girls said, have any of y'all been to the Olympics, right? Like all the coaches. And they were like, no. Like, and y'all need to get that out y'all heads that is the only goal. And I think that for many of us, that's all we knew, you know, in our community about gymnastics. Like, and so that is a big part of it now, especially in the Black community, is educating parents on like, these are the different paths for gymnasts.
That you could take,
That you can take, so... But what was your question about Alicia?
No, I was just wondering, like, because I know gymnasts, at least it's just from what I see, they have a very, like, strict, you know, schedule when it comes to, like, practice and everything. So is it, like, how does she, I'm just saying, like, from a parent's perspective, how do you see, like, all the things that she's doing, but still, you know, making sure, you know, she's having fun, like, as a, you know, kid and everything?
I mean, that's something that I think about frequently, and I try not to overwhelm myself with it because she's not fully there yet. And so it's one of those things like, okay, we'll cross that bridge when we get there. We have enough stress in our life. But to your point, again, I just left this camp and we had very real conversations about like what it looks like, because gymnastics historically, and they're trying to change this now, but historically gymnastics has been a very young sport. So meaning like the peak age for gymnasts in the past was like 16, 17. Like that's when you were in your prime. So you think about somebody being their best at 16, 17, that means that you're really like, you have to show that you're good by like 6 or 7. You know, so by 7 and 8, you're looking at girls practicing 5 days a week. So my daughter is 7. She's been in gymnastics for 2 years, so technically she was a late starter. And she is going into this second competition year. She's going to be practicing 14 hours a week, 4 days a week, and she's 7. She still wets the bed. Okay. And she's practicing.
And she's practicing 14 hours.
Practicing 14 hours a week. So it's a sport that it leaves me in awe, because it also makes you realize like how capable children really are
to do stuff like that.
To do things like that, and even just the maturity level between when she started and now, and her dedication to her sport. Because I had a conversation with her in this year in particular, because last year she was like practicing 2 days a week, 8 hours, and that's still a lot.
That's still
you think about the most sports that we grew up, it was like an hour, 2 hours.
It was an hour and a half,
a week. You know what I'm saying? At 6, she was practicing 8 hours a week, 2 days a week. But now it's double, and it's 4 days a week. So I told her, I said, look, number one, gymnastics is very expensive, which is why many of us don't get the opportunity to do it, because it's so expensive. But I was like, you have to know at this point, and I hate to put this on you as a 7-year-old, but you kind of got to know if this is what you want, right? Like you're in dance right now, you're in gymnastics, and unfortunately you have to choose. Like, what is it? So when we're having this conversation, I'm like, I want to give you a preview into your future. And I'm mad dramatic. My husband's sitting in the
I'm mad dramatic.
Here she go. Here she go. And so I'm literally like, let me give you a window into your future. I'm like, you're 7. And I said, you know, you're on a fast track, which means that potentially by next year, you could be a level 6 gymnast. Now, on average, most girls that are level 6 are going into middle school. So her team are very advanced young girls, right? Most girls at that late age are going into middle school, and they're having to decide between, are we going to drop out of school and go homeschool?
To do gymnastics. Because the practice schedule increases that much. And because they have to travel so much for meets. And then you have to realize that when you're competing at this level, it's not just gymnastics, because you're now having to take care of your body, right? So you're talking about orthopedic appointments, chiropractor appointments, cryotherapy, like trying to replenish your body from practicing 20, 30 hours a week, right? So on top of that, trying to go to school, like you don't have that many hours to go to school. So a lot of even the bigger gyms, like in Texas where Simone trains, they have schools inside the gym, yeah.
And so I just gave her a preview of that. And I was like, this is what it would look like. And I was like, would you be willing to give up your social life for gymnastics? Because there may be, like, you may have to decide it as early as next year or the following year. And she really paused. She was like, I was like, that means no recess. I mean, she's a very extroverted girl.
Yeah.
I'm like, all your friends, like, could you see yourself doing that for gymnastics? Like that. And she's like.
For gymnastics?
And she was like, yeah, I could. And I was like, really? And I didn't expect that from her, because last year, honestly, she was like, kind of like, I'm here, I'm out. And it was like something about that competitive season. Like, she just got all in. She's a very competitive child.
Yeah.
And if I read, I'm very much into like zodiac and like human design. And when I read all of her reports, it says this child will be very athletic. She'll be able to do everything. You know, it's just a matter of, does she want to do it or not? Right. Mm-hmm. And so I know that was a long-winded answer, but I think that I try to have very honest conversations with my kids. But then it's also like, okay, this is what it's going to look like for the family, right?
Yeah.
And so, for example, we're transitioning my son from private school to public school. And, you know, we were like, listen, we have invested the last 7 years in your private school, which costs $38,000 a year. Mm-hmm. Okay? That's a lot of fucking money.
Yeah.
All right? Mama needs a break. All right? I want to be able to, you know, do some things. We want to get a new house. We want you all to travel. You want to go on vacation. And it was very important that my dyslexic son knew how to read. And guess what, baby? You know how to read now. So now it's time to move on. There were a lot of tears, but he understood that we're a team. And so I think that as a parent, that's how I plan on navigating it, is saying like, every year is not going to be everybody's season. Like, every year somebody's going to have to sacrifice something. One year, all of us may be sacrificing to go to the Olympics with Lily. We don't know. Yeah. And then one year, it may be we traveling around the world, watching Parker do, you know, AAU. We don't know.
Yeah.
But as long as we have a plan, you know, together, and we're having honest conversations about what each other's priorities are, then we can kind of navigate it. And I know that that's like radical parenting, but that's what I plan to do.
No, that's good, because I think for me, at least because there's an age gap between me and my brothers. I did most of my stuff when they were smaller, so they weren't doing a lot of stuff. But now that I'm at school, now they're doing all their stuff. I'm like, dang, they busier than I was when I was their age. I mean, like, you know, I did music, I did sports, but then I stopped sports to do music. But they're doing sports. They're doing like, Mark's doing like coding camp. Ethan's doing improv and stuff. So it's like
nonstop.
No, really. And then to your point of like the whole sacrificing and stuff, just seeing like how much my mom and my grandparents do. It's like, oh, we got to take Ethan here, we got to take Mark there, we got to take Hannah to rehearsal, whatever. So I applaud you for all the...
So in other words, don't have kids.
No. Guys, keep it close.
If you needed your birth control for the day.
You're funny. So is there anything like that you've learned personally, like going to, practice with your daughter, like those things, or is it just more of a her thing? Or is it a y'all thing, or like a family thing?
Well, I guess ask me that again. Is there anything that I've learned about gymnastics?
No, just like about yourself.
Oh, girl.
Like in the process of her doing.
That's a great question, because like I said, I'm just a naturally reflective person, right? And so, again, watching these children commit to this level of higher performance has been so inspiring.
Yeah.
And it's almost like, I don't want, like, if my 7-year-old can get up and like pop her shit, like I can get up and do a damn sit-up. You know what I'm saying? So like outside of like the physical commitment that she has, like it does inspire me to push harder for my children. Like I feel like, in the early days, like I worked really hard. And this is when I just, had Parker, like I brought Parker everywhere with me. Like he was kind of like, everybody knew him on my team. Like he was just kind of like my baby that went on sales trips with me. And then once he got his diagnosis, I kind of had to put business on the back end to really lean into motherhood, you know? And so I would say for the last 7 years, I really, really transitioned into like full blown motherhood, right? Which has been great because it allowed me to roll up my sleeves and really just like get my war wounds with just understanding how to parent. Because prior to that, I had a nanny, and while it was amazing, it really gave me a false sense of what motherhood was because I had so much help. It wasn't until my nanny decided to get pregnant, and I was like, girl, where you going? Where you going? Like, who told you to have a baby? That I really was like, oh shit, like this is a lot of work. And so I really had to go all in. But I say that to say that as my children are getting older and I watch their level of commitment to their things, it's like at no point do I want to have a conversation with Alicia and say, okay, we got to wrap this up because we don't got no more money. You know what I'm saying? Or we don't have enough to travel to Houston with the whole family for you to do this, and this, right? And so, not that it's all about money, but as a parent, that's what I'm kind of doing right now. It's like I am the one that's sponsoring because everything costs, right? And we talked about earlier, like, how do you give them access? You got to have this, right? And so even when it comes to like activities, it's like there's certain involvement, like whether it's summer camps or programs or coding camps, like everything costs. And I have 4. And so right now it's about how do I position myself to be in peak performance position so that I can grow my business, I'm not tired, I have energy, because as a mother, that's the biggest thing. It's like finding the strength to keep going. And so I've had to really realign, around this concept of energy management, which is also what I started coaching on, was just like, okay, how can I improve my diet, right, for both me and my kids? If my daughter is going to be practicing 18 hours a week, she got to really have nutrients
to fuel her,
But that's the same with me. If I'm going to be driving up and down the highway from this practice to that practice, coaching all through the day, giving presentations, I have to fuel myself. And I haven't taken care of myself physically as much as I used to prior to kids, right? And so I think that as a gymnastic mom, I see parents in there getting it in, like when their kids are in practice. And I'm like, I need to be doing that. And so it's just little things that I start thinking about. Like, I want to be here long enough. This is what I've recently, and now I'm starting to feel old. I recently have been experiencing these emotions of, I want to be here long enough to attend my granddaughter's whatever it is, right? Because like my mother-in-law, when my husband got sick a few months back, she was here. She was able to go to my daughter's gymnastics meets. She lives in Virginia. But, growing up as a sports mom, all her sons, but to see her like relive that joy and that passion through the sport and the competitiveness of gymnastics, I was like, I want that. You know what I'm saying? Like, I want to be able to be that grandmother. Like, being a mother is like you reap the benefits, but not as much because you got to freaking grind to get them there. So it's like, yeah, I love it, but it's like, dang, I had to work really hard for y'all to live this life. But as a grandmother, it's like you really reaping the benefits, because you're like, man, like we put in all the work and we can really see like our legacy.
See it go.
So that has really become my motivation, but I'm not going to be able to do that if I don't take care of my health now. So that's like, I would say that I've been really internalizing, like prioritizing my health, my physical health, as much as my children do their physical health, like so that I could be an example, but also so I can sustain my living, unless the good Lord decides
to live longer. No, you got a bunch of people to go. Right. So what was your switch from you were a businesswoman and everything before you had kids, but then doing the same thing after you had them? What was like the hardest thing for you to I was gonna say like the switch for you, I guess, or the hardest thing for you like to figure out?
I mean, that's like, I don't think I have it figured out yet, and that's what I tell people, like, I have not mastered how to be, and I don't know that I will ever return to where I was, but what I have been trying to do is get back to being the business owner that I was prior to children as a mother. And I have not done that yet. So I just started back kind of working full time, right? So like after I kind of took my hiatus, I was still working, but really working part-time, like through the pandemic, homeschooling and all that. So I would say like in the last year, I've started to transition back into the workforce, which has looked like taking on more clients. So I'm probably on average working like 20 hours per week. Like I'm not at all working at like 40, 50 like I was before. And I don't have intentions of going back that high. I don't want to work harder. But for me, it's just trying to figure out how to be still mentally present with my kids, but also do what I know that I need for myself in terms of creating, right? Because I am a creative and I thrive off of creating, right? And so I recently started a newsletter, which has been a big outlet for me. I do it every Monday, and so it requires me to do a lot of research, a lot of writing, and so even just having like that dedicated 4 to 5 hours a week of like producing is getting me back into a rhythm, right? And so I haven't quite figured out what it's going to look like to get back to that robust, and I don't know that it will. Like I think that it will probably not peak until my kids are like self-sufficient. Like I would probably say like middle school. Yeah. Because I'm so like in demand. Like I'm like basically an Uber driver. But what I'm focused on right now is like, since my life is a little slower pace, like I'm consuming so much, right? So I read a lot, you know, I'm starting to write a lot, and really I'm thinking about like how I want to serve others. So I've met a lot of people in these years. Seen a lot of things that I want to make an impact on. So when I get back out, I can see myself doing a lot of like nonprofit work, a lot of advocacy. So it's just a transition, you know, and thinking about things differently, because before it was very much hustle. Yeah. And I don't think I'll ever return to that. Like I want the hustle money, but I don't want
the hustle lifestyle.
Yeah. I don't think I have it in me anymore.
Really?
Nah.
When did you say when you had kids is when it stopped, or is it like more recently?
When I had kids, for sure.
Okay.
Yeah. I think that my values changed, you know, because for me, before it was truly just about make more money. You know, you make your first million, you want your second, you want your third. And I fortunately always kind of had this upward trajectory in success when it came to revenue. But then, I want to say 2018, I had one of my close friends died during childbirth, and I really, really suffered mentally.
Yeah.
Like, it just took the life out of me. And I fell into a very deep depression. And so even though me as a life coach, knowing like all of these tools and all of these things, I did not realize that when you truly get into a depressive state and like the like your chemical imbalance is off, there's really nothing that you can do to hustle your way out of it, right? And so I think that experiencing that, coming out of that, which took several years, because you have to remember, like, I basically spent 10 years of having children. So if I wasn't pregnant, I was breastfeeding. So I basically was having children for 10 years. And that looks like an imbalance of hormone. That's what that looks like. So that means you're psycho for 10 years. Okay, that's how that's what that translates into. Like, you're neurotic. Okay?
Neurotic for 10 years.
So this is the longest that I've not been pregnant or breastfeeding. And so I'm finally in a place where, like, I feel like myself.
Yeah.
And this feels great, you know? And so I don't want, like, I value this and the being able to just be present and breathe and not constantly, you know, have my wheels turning around, like, how am I make the next dollar? You know, like, I'm very strategic around, like, everything that I do has to make sense for, like, my bigger purpose. Like, I spend a lot of time defining, like, what are the things that I really, really love? What is the legacy that I really want to leave? And if what I do daily doesn't align to that, then I don't spend time on it. But with that being said, my money has not caught up with that yet. Okay?
Yeah.
So it's kind of like I have, you know, my day job and I'm working in my passion, but, you know, I don't get to work at a level that I could to monetize the way that I want to. So I think that that's like my next thing. It's like, okay, having the faith and keeping the pressure on myself of, like, it's easy to go back to hustle. Like, that's the cop out to me. It's like, okay, yeah, I can go flip some products, go get a quick $200,000 sales job and be good, you know, but that's not what I'm called for. You know, I think, you know, I recently was reading the Latin term for vocation, you know, is a calling. And somehow along the way we got it mixed in. Vocation is just a job, but it's like, no, like, at this point, I'm almost about to be 40. What is my calling? Like, there's not a number or a hustle that can take me away from it.
From that, yeah.
And if that means I got to work at a slower pace and have, like, a different lifestyle,
that's just what it's going to be.
And then eventually everything will catch up. And you mark my words, like save this episode, because I swear in like, I would say probably in like 2 or 3 years, we'll be sitting in like my studio.
Hello.
You know, I really want to get more into just like storytelling and hosting and sitting down. And
Because you're really good at it.
You think so?
Yeah, because one thing I love when I bring people on here is when I don't have to talk that much.
Yeah, and you shouldn't, because you're the host.
Hello.
You know what I'm saying? Like, but I want to be able to tell the untold stories of just not, you know, you don't have to be famous or the big people or whatever to like have just these incredible stories that
to tell people
every day. And like I said, I'm always asking the questions. Like, I'm just very overbearing. Like, even at ballet class, I'll be like, so like I overheard you saying that, you know, your husband was sick. What was he diagnosed with? And they were like, girl,
I didn't even say. Yeah.
You know, like, I'm just a very inquisitive person. And in that, I find so many incredible humans. And in that, there's like so many lessons around how people came to be who they are.
Yeah.
And so I was saying that, save this episode, because I feel like my commitment to walking the walk, not just talking the talk in my sessions, because this is what I have my clients do all the time. And what's a little bit frustrating, and I know my clients are like, is that I have helped my clients find their stuff, and they are killing it. They are killing it. It's like, we really do the work. They are killing it. They've got the business. They're getting paid for it, you know. And sometimes I envy them, because I'm like, dang, like, I put them on, you know. When is mine, you know, my thing gonna catch up with my passion, right? And it's like, it's there, but it's not there
yet.
You know what I'm saying? Like, it ain't Tony Robbins. Like, it ain't Oprah.
Yep.
Like, I'm trying to be like, I'm not trying to be Oprah,
but I'm trying to be
Oprah. You know, having my greens while I'm doing my interview, you know? So I think that it's coming, you know, but I feel like I have to just be committed to the process and
of
the
it all.
undoing of what I know and what's comfortable, and just being okay with like, okay, you know, it's not fun to just sit at home and like put others before yourself and drive your kids. That shit is not fun for me.
Yeah.
Like, I don't like doing that. You know, I love my kids, but I don't like being a slave to them.
I don't like being a Uber driver.
Yeah, I don't like being a chef. Like, I did not go to culinary school. But it's like the sacrifice and the lessons that I'm learning, you know, is really helping to develop me as a human and a person. And it's helping me to develop my craft. And write my book. I forgot to tell you I'm writing a book.
No, I was going to ask you that, because I'm like, are you writing this stuff down?
I am. I'm finally writing it down, because as you see, I have a lot to say. I talk way too much. I realize that I do talk a lot. My producer always says, you talk so much. I'm like, I know, girl. I just sit at home all day with these kids. They don't talk to me, so I just have thoughts in my head. But yeah, I've started writing my first book, and the book is just, I don't know what the official title will be called, but right now it's called Life Crafting. But it is about this process that we've talked about today, which is really just kind of finding that life's calling, but in this strategic way, right?
Yeah.
So it's combining my work and like strategy that I've worked with small businesses to do that strategic approach with the life coaching principles, with the positive psychology. And then the part that I think people will like the most is, once you have that, is creating your profitable persona, right? Because what people know me for the most is like, I was one of the like original like OG influencers before influencers were.
Yeah, I was going to ask you that. Like, how did you start doing like social media and stuff?
Girl, it was very unintentional. Like, I have always been an early adapter of technology.
Yeah.
That's from my father. Like, my father is a techie guy. Like, we, you know, grew up with Mac computers in the 80s. Like, he's just always been a techie guy. And so that I've always just love anytime Apple come out with something, I'm there. I had the first iPad, the first iPhone. So when they started coming out with social media apps, I was the first
to get them.
I downloaded Instagram the day it came out, you know, and so I was one of the first users on it. I remember my coworker, she was like, have you heard of this new app called Instagram? It has like really cool like filters where you can like look vintage on your pictures. And I was like, oh, this is great. And so when Instagram first came out, that's all we used it for, was a filter app. But I ended up using it when I had my direct sales business to essentially like post
to promote
products.
it, basically.
Yeah. And so that was before, people were really getting paid partnerships to do stuff. I was just really using social media to do what we at the time called attraction marketing, which was like promoting a lifestyle, promoting results, and then funneling them into more traditional internet marketing things like your email funnel and that whole thing. And so that's what I spent 6 years doing. And so that's what I really made a lot of my money was on Instagram. Like I literally would sell like coffee and vitamins on Instagram and make, like, I can remember some Fridays I'd be like, okay, I'm having a sale on my skinny coffee, and make like $1,000 on Instagram. Like, people would just cash out me. And like, for somebody who had like no kids, no job,
that's what's up.
I remember being in Vegas Memorial Day weekend. I was by myself and I was sitting at Nobu, and I had posted like some body wraps. And I was like, oh, I wrapped my stomach last night for the pool. I posted like my little before and after. And literally from the time I started my dinner till the time I was finished eating, I made like $500 selling wraps. I was like, this is a fucking life. Like, I'm literally never getting a job again. Like, this is
what I'm gonna do.
This is what I'm gonna do for the rest of my life. I'm gonna flip wraps. Like, I'm hustling wraps. So it was just like a good time. Like, it was the highlight of my 20s, like being able to like make money on the internet, and it was like no rules, it was no algorithms, it wasn't like how it is now where I do a lot of influencer partnerships here and there, but I really don't like it now because it's very much like you work for agencies. You have to have deadlines, they have feedback on your content, you gotta get
it approved and stuff.
I'm not trying to do all that for no $200. I sold wraps for $200 in 20 minutes. Like, this is not a real hustle. This is a job. So it's like, I do like the fact that influencers like can truly, content creators are just, I love that space.
Okay.
And I love, like, I have friends who do it full time. I don't consider myself a content creator. I would love to be one. I just don't have the capacity to create content. I have a lot of content ideas, and they have not come to fruition, and I don't have the right equipment to make them as pretty as I want them. So I do wish that to some degree the money that people are making now, like the Jackie Inas of the world, that money was being made when I was out there doing that kind of thing. And I think Jackie kind of started around the time she started around the time that I was doing that kind of thing, but she popped because she got on the right platform, was YouTube, because YouTube was paying people just to be there. Yep. Whereas Instagram, you basically just kind of used Instagram to tell people about it, and then you funneled them off
to somewhere else.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But yeah, girl, so that portion of my life is also added on to my book, because essentially that's a big part of who I am. It's like, okay, you do all this self-discovery, you figure out who you are, you figure out who you are, what your vocation is, what your calling is in the world. And then when you know your calling, get paid for your calling and make it profitable, but make it you, make it feel like you, make it look like you, And so that's really, what's going to be in the book. And I'm excited.
I'm excited. Well, let me get that pre-order going.
It's going to be a signed copy for you.
Hello. Well, I want to thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I learned a lot about you.
Yes.
And all your experiences and stuff. And I hope everybody learned a little bit of something, because I know I did on the life coaching part. We're going to have to call you up after this.
Come on.
So I just want to thank you again. And yeah, I hope everyone has a great day. Make sure y'all follow my girl. I'll put all her stuff in there. And yeah.
Thank you for having me. Bye, guys.
Okay. Oh, my goodness.